Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 17, where Amanda James is going to explain it all, aren't you?
Yeah, sure. Sure, I will.
Yeah, why
You
not?
want me to?
Yes, absolutely. Well, today we are going to be taking a look at two parole hearings out of the state of Connecticut. And I thought that these would be interesting to take a look at because in the To Catch a Predator world, where we watch a lot of content, we often think about what happens to the predators. What type of punishment do they get? What happens after that punishment is supposed to be over? And I think that these hearings are a good picture of what reality is like. I often hear a lot of people say, in particular with Mr. Lorne Armstrong, that he should be in prison for the rest of his life. And that just isn't reality. So they're going to be sentenced by the judge at their trial, or if they have a plea bargain. But then they're going to go to prison. They're going to serve whatever time that they have, and then they're going to be let go. And like for Lorne, he does have restrictions after the fact. And certainly that's likely going to be the fact of what's going to happen for everybody who gets out in cases like this. But they're not going to be locked up forever. So I think that if we were going to be looking at a life sentence, we would be looking at some type of a crime that's going to be perhaps extra egregious, or maybe there's multiple victims. But a lot of times for things like we're dealing with To Catch a Predator or other crimes of that nature, we're not going to see a lifetime sentence. So we had a chance to watch these prior. And before we got started today, you were giving a little bit of an impression of what you were thinking. So what do you think? Did you have an overall feeling while you were watching these or after you were done?
Well, I would be interested to understand more about their guidelines for who would be suitable for release,
Mm-hmm.
because I think they have some sort of scoring system where they try to like calculate the risk of reoffending.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder where like socioeconomic status would play into that, um, or where the like budgetary concerns would play into that. That's kind of what I was wondering.
Okay.
Judging by the cost of like keeping somebody in prison as opposed to letting them out on restrictions. I just wonder what goes into it. Um, and yeah, I guess how do they determine whether somebody's safe or not?
Yeah. Well, I know how I feel about that. I don't think that anybody's safe, especially
No, of
after
course.
something like this happens.
Right, right. And of course, you're right. They can't necessarily keep them locked up for life, or they won't keep them locked up for life.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, how do you determine whether or not somebody's showing genuine remorse? That's something you never really know if somebody actually feels bad about it or if they're just putting on a show.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. That's a tough job.
Oh, sure,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah. So why don't we just get started?
sure.
Okay. So the first one up is James Curcio. And by the way, all of these all of these videos are found on a channel called Mandu Channel 2. And I think he has a couple of different channels. So this particular one has to do with parole hearings out of the state of Connecticut. He has another channel that deals with the state of Louisiana. So if this is something that you're going to be interested in taking a look at, then absolutely check out the channel. I'll put that in the description. And then for the two hearings that we're going to be looking at today, I'll put those in the description as well. Because I did take out some parts of it. So, in particular, just so that everyone's aware, I did take out some introductory parts where they're just introducing themselves. The parole board is introducing themselves. And then also, each of the hearings does have a portion that has to do with the victim impact, because they do have input in these hearings. And so I did take that out. I just didn't feel that it was necessary to include that. But we will talk about it because we did both have a chance to watch it. And then you'll have a chance as well if you're interested in that. So James Curcio was convicted of, let's see here, misrepresenting his age to entice a minor, risk of injury to a child. So this one's interesting because, again, thinking about the types of crimes that we witness on To Catch a Predator, this is sort of going to fall in line with that because it's based on the internet. So when he committed his crime, he was 45 years old, and he started speaking to a victim on Snapchat who was only 12. And what's interesting about him is that he wasn't speaking to this child as himself, as a 45-year-old. He was speaking to this child as a boy in high school in the state of New York. So I think that this type of a situation brings up the level of sophistication, I think, in grooming and premeditation, planning, all of that. I think it's really interesting because, again, in To Catch a Predator, most of them are just themselves. And they go and they pursue someone much younger. In this scenario, he did something completely different, where he presented himself as a high school student, somebody who was a little bit older than her, but not that much older, somebody that she may be interested in speaking with, and she was. Now, the unfortunate thing is that this person, this victim, was in emotional crisis at the time. This was a girl who, according to the victim impact statement read by her mother, was very depressed. She didn't want to live any longer. And so she went to the hospital because she did make an attempt on her life. So she was in the hospital for 30 days. And during that time, the parents are obviously looking for a lot of answers. They want to know what is going on with their daughter. So they go to her Snapchat account, and there they were able to see the messages that she was having with this person. And one of the more heartbreaking ones that she had said specifically was that her daughter went online when she was feeling depressed, and she was obviously wanting to talk to this person. Now, I don't know what type of a relationship that they had. I'm assuming that it was sexual in nature, and perhaps they were speaking romantically, however that could possibly be. But she was expressing that to him, and he said, and I quote, "Don't make daddy sad, send me pics." Isn't that disgusting?
Do we know how long they were communicating for?
No. Nope, they didn't talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah. So it didn't talk but I mean, think about this. Now he didn't go there as himself. He went there as another underage person.
Mm-hmm.
So and I'm also curious. Now, in his conviction, it doesn't say in here that it's anything related to any photos or videos or anything like that. But I'm curious, what photos was he sending to her?
Um, so I also wonder what actually happened as opposed to what he was convicted for, because I believe he
Mm-hmm.
took a plea,
Mm-hmm.
and in which case some charges can be dropped
Sure.
just to speed things along, I guess. I know he sent her really graphic, like, sexual messages, but I don't know if there were any pictures involved.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine there would be, right? I don't know.
Well, he just said here, send me pics.
Right. No,
You
I
know,
mean
I'm sure.
from him going to her.
Oh, there could be.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there could be. Well, he was also trying to portray himself as a high school student. So
Hmm.
if he did take pictures, we know they weren't of his face.
Sure.
Hmm.
Yeah. But there would have to be some kind of something with his face. I
Yeah,
suppose there does.
possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there wouldn't have to be, but it would make sense that there would be,
Hmm.
you know. But yeah, so he was sentenced to 8 years, suspended after 4, followed by 5 years of probation, and then 10 years on the registry. So, this hearing that we're about to see occurred 1 year after sentencing. So, here we go. Maybe. Oh my goodness, why isn't it playing?
Come on, you pedophile, talk.
Thank you.
There
Okay.
we go. You're welcome.
First, I want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. This has been an extremely difficult few years for a lot of people because of my actions. I would like to apologize to everyone I've hurt and embarrassed. To the victim and the family that I took advantage of, I'm so incredibly sorry that I was irresponsible and completely inappropriate with my words and my actions. As I said on the day of my sentencing, I don't expect you to ever forgive me because I'll never be able to forgive myself. To my children, neither one of you should have had to experience your father being away. I should have been a more responsible parent. I know we have some very difficult conversations in our future. You are both amazing people, and you two mean the world to me. I'm going to prove that to you both. To my parents, my mother who passed away when I was 15 years old, and my father who did his best to raise me, I'm sorry I let my adult life spiral out of control. To my siblings, you all have been so incredibly supportive through this whole time. I know that my incarceration has been unimaginably hard for you to wrap your heads around. You guys could have turned your back on me, but you didn't. I'll never be able to repay you for your loyalty and support. Thank you for not giving up on me. To my ex wife, I want to thank you for your unwavering support over the last 2+ years. I know that our son has had a lot of difficult questions that you haven't had the answers for, and that's my fault. The fact that you facilitated a platform for Henry and I to talk every single day has been selfless. The best part of every day for me is hearing my son's voice. Thank you so much for your positivity and for always putting Henry first.
Okay, so I just want to stop it there
Yes,
because
please.
I wanted to let him get his ball rolling for a little bit before we shoot everything down.
Hmm.
But I really want to.
Yeah, I'm already so mad.
I know. So the first thing that he said, being inappropriate with his words and his actions, being irresponsible.
Hmm.
And what burns me so much about what he said about the victim and the family is I understand if you can't forgive me. I hate when somebody says that. And somebody in this position, I understand if you can't forgive me. So if you can't do that, I'll understand.
Hmm. Yeah, what a hero.
Yeah, what right, exactly. Exactly. I'm sorry, but however they feel and however they want to forgive you, not forgive you is none of your business.
I, I agree. It's offensive to even ask for forgiveness
Yeah.
to them. I would have denied him right when he said that his words and actions were inappropriate and irresponsible.
Mhm.
I don't think those are the right descriptors at all. I think predatory
Yes.
would be a good one.
Mhm.
I feel like he's really downplaying it.
Yeah, he's going easy on himself.
And what kind of his ex-wife? He wants to thank his ex-wife for supporting him. What
Mhm.
what kind of a sick bitch? He has children.
Yeah.
They have children and he was preying on a 12-year-old girl.
Mhm.
Somebody should watch that mother.
I agree. I
It's
agree.
women like that that allow men like that into their lives to hurt their children to begin
Mhm.
with.
Mhm. Well, you know what's interesting, and this is going to sidetrack just slightly, but on the same subject. Have you ever watched Judge Boyd?
If I have, I don't. Maybe I've watched some judges. I don't know. Is it a male or a
A
female?
female. Yep, she's down in Texas. She's fabulous. So you can find a lot of her videos on YouTube, because she records her hearings and things like that. Um, but there was the one video that I saw just the other day where she was sentencing someone, and she does criminal court. So she's sentencing this person who has a massive criminal record, very violent, and he was out on parole. And he then broke that parole by being a felon in possession of a firearm. Now, during the particular offense that had him violated, he could be seen on camera with a gun in his hand as he is stalking outside of, I don't know if it's his ex-wife, or it's at least the mother of his kids, or one of his daughters, I should say. And he also that day had threatened his parents at gunpoint. So clearly a very violent person. So he's going to be going to prison, and he's at his sentencing, and he did a plea deal for that as well. And so as they're talking about this plea deal, he had a couple of different cases that were all thrown into this one deal where they were just going to take care of it all at once. One of those had to do with a sexual assault against this woman. And when it happened, their daughter, who was very small at the time, I believe, was there. I don't know what happened, but he was charged. So obviously something was happening that day. And so while they're talking about this plea, and it comes to, would the defense like to say anything? The one thing that the defendant wanted to have was contact with his daughter, who I believe was like 15, still underage. But she wasn't a child or anything, but she was still underage. And he was talking about how he loves his daughter so much, and wants to at least be able to send her a card on her birthday or whatever, and send it to his mother or something, and facilitate it that way, because the mother of this child has a lifetime order of protection against him. Obviously, he's had a lot going on. So he's talking about this and how all he wants is to be able to have contact with his daughter, and the judge said, no. You don't have contact with your daughter, because this one case where there was that sexual assault, you're hurting that child by hurting her mother. So you made decisions that are taking you away and putting you in prison. So I cannot, under good conscience, allow you to have contact with her. When she turns 18, and she wants to reach out to you, then that's obviously her decision. But for the time being, she is under the order of protection as well. So,
Yeah, good.
yeah.
Of course, yeah. It's like this guy said, it's been so rough on his son. His son should have never had his father have to go away to prison. Yeah, that's true, of course, but he made the choice to groom and abuse a 12-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing as well is, and obviously we're all going to know this just by hearing this story. This girl made it very clear that she was 12.
Mm-hmm.
So that there was no question there. He knew what he was doing, exactly what he was doing. So, yeah, so now we have him thanking his ex-wife for being so supportive and allowing their child to have contact with his father, who is now a convicted sex offender.
Mm-hmm.
What a hero.
I know it's really mind-boggling how a woman's a mother's like red flags wouldn't be going off. I don't care if you thought he was a good guy or even a good father. A good guy and a good father wouldn't do that to a 12-year-old girl.
Absolutely. Absolutely
And what I
wouldn't.
think is being swept under the rug here is that, and a lot of sex offenders do this, just like Lauren. I was messed up at the time. Other things were going on, that I was depressed, blah, blah, blah. You're not attracted to children for any reason other than you are attracted to children.
Right.
And that doesn't just go away when you get over your depression
Yeah.
or whatever, your alcohol addiction or whatever bullshit
Hmm.
they're trying to blame it on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's giving his Oscar speech now,
Hmm.
thanking everybody. So let's see what else.
And to the parole board, I want you to know that I've taken the last 26 months of being incarcerated to work on myself. When I first arrived at Hartford Correctional Center, it was extremely difficult. I had never been in a jail. I had never even been arrested before. So going to jail as a 46-year-old man was frightening, to say the least.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know, poor baby.
I'm so sorry that it was scary for you, sir.
Yeah, this guy's the victim of his own crime.
That's what that sounds like.
Hmm.
I was dealing with serious depression and going through painful physical and emotional alcohol withdrawal. I quickly realized that my freedom was gone and that I needed to adapt to this new and unpleasant environment. Although I was reluctant at first, I agreed to go on medication for my depression, which was definitely the right decision. I soon met Catherine Ferrone. She worked in the mental health department at HCC. Our one on ones went really well, and I became more and more comfortable opening up to Catherine about a lot of things. Things like my childhood, adulthood, my marriage, fatherhood, addiction, and the reasons behind my arrest and incarceration. I was eager to meet with the mental health experts as much as I possibly could because I was finding it extremely helpful to talk to someone, and I was learning more and more about myself every day. Then, after a few months, Catherine called me to the mental health offices to ask me if I'd like to participate in an internship program that HCC was doing. She told me that I'd be having weekly sessions with a local college student who was pursuing a career in the field of mental health. I agreed to participate and I met Jocelyn. Those sessions, along with still seeing Catherine as much as I could, were so critical to me remaining positive. I was also selected to be part of a seeking safety group. It was a small group of 10 to 12 inmates that focused on trauma, PTSD, and addiction. I found this to be very helpful and inspiring. I started going to Bible study, and I even started my own mentoring program with some of the younger inmates who reminded me a lot of the college basketball players I used to coach. The group was called Positivity Through Hoops. A couple of days after my sentencing, I was moved here to McDougall Correctional Institution. At McDougall, I've continued on my medications and sought as much therapy as I could. I've completed both of my OAP programs, which I have found to be very helpful. I am on the job list here, but I haven't been called yet. So I do volunteer work as a referee for the Intramural Basketball League. Believe me, this is not an easy job, but I found it to be therapeutic to teach other inmates the proper way to officiate. This is something I excelled at prior to my arrest. I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous for 33 weeks now. The group has honestly had a huge effect on me. They've been super supportive and even unanimously voted for me to be the group chairman. If you grant me the opportunity for parole, my plan is to live with my brother Joseph. He has been understanding and gracious enough to offer me a place to live until I get my feet under me and can afford a place of my own. He has also offered me a job within his flooring company, which he owns. I also am planning on going to barber school once I've saved enough money to pay for it. I will be filling the rest of my schedule with positive activities such as exercising, playing basketball, and I would love to join a local theater group. When I when times get hard, I look forward to applying all the positive coping skills that I've learned throughout my incarceration. I will be an active member with AA and will continue individual therapy. Most importantly, I want to spend as much time with my kids as I possibly can, be a positive role model, and be the best father I can be. Thank you for your time and consideration today.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, James. Thank you for congratulating yourself, basically, on being such a good
Yeah,
guy.
I wasn't impressed.
Why weren't you
I'm not,
impressed?
well, I'm not impressed with people going to Bible study in prison. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing else to do.
That's
Everybody
a good point.
finds God in prison
Right.
and uses that to their advantage. And, during their parole hearings or whatever to make them look better. I'm not impressed that he's in Alcoholics Anonymous. Again, you're in prison. You can't drink.
Mm-hmm.
So, did he say he's been sober? I think he might have said that.
He
I've
does
been
at one
sober.
point.
Yeah, great. Congratulations. You're in prison, stupid.
Yeah. Right.
Of course you've been sober. You and everybody else. Nobody's impressed.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about this too is that obviously he has to kind of sell himself, right, to the board. He's got to talk about how much he's grown, all of the positive things that he's doing. I don't think he's gotten into trouble while he's been there, the short time that he's been there. So that's what he's supposed to do, I suppose, is talk about all of these great things, how he's essentially trying to point out that he's a different person than he was when he got there, and how being in prison was horrible and it was uncomfortable and all of that. Um, what I feel like is missing is anything that has to do with the crime. He basically hasn't talked about any of that. Any of his sex offender treatment. He again, I think, talks about it in very generalized terms, talking about his therapy and all of that and talking about, the crime. But the thing is that, like you said before, and I firmly believe it as well, alcohol did not make you reach out to a child. Being depressed did not make you reach out to a child. Getting divorced did not make you reach out and talk to a child. None of those things created what you did.
Mm-hmm.
That came from a very dark side of you that came out. And you allowed it to come out. And you facilitated that. And you fantasized about that. That's why you did it. It has
Right.
nothing to do with those other things.
Right. And he's talking like the medication for his depression has changed him
Mm-hmm.
and, not drinking anymore. But you're right. Absolutely. He hasn't mentioned once coming to terms with the fact that he's attracted to young kids,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, and
Yeah.
what led him to do that. He's blaming it on the alcohol and depression.
Yeah.
Which would be a huge warning sign for me that he could reoffend. He hasn't taken responsibility. I know I've done something bad. For taking advantage and being irresponsible. That's not what happened.
No. No, it wasn't. It was deliberate.
Hmm.
That's the thing that I feel like they try to skip over and make it seem like this was a mistake. I've never been into trouble before. I've never been arrested before. I'm not that guy. I'm not a bad person. I messed up because look at all these horrible things that were going on in my life. And he even said he apologized to his parents for his life getting out of control. You lost
Yeah.
control? Is that what that was?
Well, then you need to be in prison if losing control means that you try to groom a kid.
Exactly. Yeah. So what's going to happen when you go on the outside and you have responsibilities and life becomes somewhat normal again? You're not within these walls where they tell you what to do, when to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still going to go to Bible study, sir? Tell me something you learned in Bible study. Is it that God forgives? I bet you it is.
I bet you it is.
Yeah. So I think now the board is gonna say something. So let's see.
For your statement, Mr. Curcio, we appreciate it, and you covered a lot for us. We are going to ask you questions. When we're done with our questions, we'll turn the hearing over to the Office of Victim Services for input, and then we'll deliberate and give you our decision.
Thank
Okay?
you. Yep.
Right. So I do want to talk a little bit about the actual offense, not only for our benefit, but for the benefit of the victim and the victim's family as well. So you met the victim on social media, Snapchat specifically, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And at some point you knew that your victim was 12 years old, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did you portray yourself to be younger than your actual age?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So, I'd like to get a better understanding because obviously you knew this was wrong, right? You have children of your own, and I'm quite certain you wouldn't want any adult to groom them the way you did, right?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. I mean, you have an 8-year-old. You wouldn't want this to happen to your child, right? So you knew.
What do you mean, of course not? You did it. You did it to someone else's child.
Which is what the parole board member should have said to get his response. I don't think she does.
No. I think that their questions are lacking. They're not as in depth as I would like them to be. Of course, I'm not a parole officer, so I don't know what the standard is. But they seem to just be like, okay. And I have so many other questions, like when she asked, so you went online and you were portraying somebody much younger, correct? And he's like, yes. The next thing for me would be why?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're never going to know.
This is wrong. So help us all try to understand what led you to making this horrible decision.
Oh, here we go.
Are we ready?
I don't think so.
Everyone get your tissues. Okay, this is going to be really sad. Okay.
The one thing I can say is, and I don't want it to sound like I'm making an excuse.
But you're going to make an excuse. You ready?
Yeah.
But I was dealing with a lot of depression at the time.
Okay, depression.
I was recently divorced and living on my own and isolating myself from my loved ones.
Oh, all by yourself?
Yeah.
Was it that you preferred the company of a vulnerable 12-year-old girl online to that of your own children? Is that why?
That kind of sounds like it. And it also sounds like perhaps that activity is something you would do on your own. Would you do that in front of other people?
It's true. Maybe that's why he was isolating, to keep his little secret. He did it because that's what he wanted to do. What a douchebag.
Exactly.
My addiction with alcohol had gotten out of control to the point where I spent every minute of my day either drunk or hungover. I honestly don't know what was going through my mind at the time. I wish I could tell you. What I do know is I'm extremely remorseful, and I just hope that someday I'll be able to give myself some grace for this.
We're in Bible study.
I don't know I honestly don't know what was going through my mind is not a good enough answer.
Oh, no, it isn't. No. But whatever it is, I hope that I can forgive myself someday. I don't today, though. I don't know.
And I hope that the people that I've affected will all heal.
Yeah, I I mean, it does create a lot of damage and trust issues. I think as parents, we're all very cautious about our kids going online because we know that these types of things contribute to that. Society as a whole, the issues, I do.
I wish that she would have said too, because there's people like you there.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like they're kind of just skirting over what he did.
Yeah.
Appreciate your explanations and your openness and honesty. We understand that that's difficult to do, right?
Ma'am.
And
Congratulations.
His openness and honesty, it's all just been excuses
Mm-hmm.
and victimization of himself.
Yeah.
I was drunk. Okay, then don't drink, you fucking asshole.
Mm-hmm.
I was drunk and depressed and lonely. Self-isolated, he said.
Yeah.
By his own choice. I don't know. I don't like him. I don't like these people asking questions.
And you've had some tough conversation with family members so that everybody's aware and they can support you. So that's definitely a step in the right direction. Okay, so you took the program, and in reading about your interview, one of the things you said that you would do to avoid risky situations in the future is to stay away from dating apps. But you weren't on a dating app, and I mean, you can find adults on a dating app. Why would that be a trigger for you?
Yeah, well, what I actually said was I wanted to stay away from all social media apps, including dating apps.
Why though? If you're no longer drinking, if you're on medication for your depression, if you're not isolating yourself because you have this wonderful family who's going to support you now, including your children, then why is social media something you have to stay away from because that's a trigger? Why is that a trigger for you?
Mm-hmm. Right. Is it because kids use social media and you're attracted to them? Could that be
Right.
why?
Yes,
Mister?
exactly. Why isn't that something that's brought up?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
That would be my question to him.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
That makes more sense. Definitely.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. If social media is a trigger for you and you know this, then that's a great plan to stay away from social media. Okay. You mentioned being heavily involved and invested in the AA community, and you did complete the Tier 2 program. Can you tell us some tools you learned as far as your addiction goes and relapse prevention?
Yeah, as far as my alcohol problem, being in AA and being in individual therapy has helped me a lot and has helped me realize that I'm not the only one who struggles with this, and that moving forward, I need to seek help from not only the people that know me and care about me, but through professionals and through other people who have been in my situation. And as far as the short track program, a lot of what I learned in there was about triggers, like you had mentioned, and moving forward, just occupying myself with positive things to do, right? So isolation was one of my biggest was one of my biggest problems. So it's about surrounding myself with good people and the people who care about me and the people that I love, especially my children.
Where were these people before? It sounds like he was drunk all the time.
Right. He was drunk and he chose to, like we said before, he chose to isolate himself from them so he could be online talking to a kid instead of spending time with his children.
Yeah.
Who are suddenly so important to him now that he's in prison.
Right.
To avoid, something terrible ever happening again.
And do you plan to continue with the AA community on the outside? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. What about a sponsor? Have you thought about getting a sponsor?
Yep, I plan on getting a sponsor, and I want to get somebody, locally once I get home and get settled in. They don't really offer sponsorship here.
Okay,
So that's something that, yeah, that I'm definitely interested in, and, eventually down the road, being able to help other people as a sponsor or in any other way that I can.
okay. And your plan is to reside in New York with family?
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
that, is that still your plan? I don't believe we were able to reach your proposed sponsor.
Okay.
Yeah, to confirm that. So have you spoken to him recently?
Oh, yeah, my brother, we speak almost every night, and,
Okay.
yeah, he's been great. He's
All
offered
right.
me a place to live and a
Yeah.
job within his company, yeah.
Okay, so we would need to speak to him, so just let him know that someone's trying to reach out to him and he should return any messages. I don't know if there was a message left, if he has a voicemail or not, but
Okay.
to make that happen, we'd have to speak to him. Okay, and we did receive multiple support letters from your family members and the job letter with the flooring company.
I'm so curious about these support letters and the family that's supporting him and what they think actually happened.
Yeah, I'm assuming they just buy the, I was drunk and depressed.
Mhm.
It's one thing for, I think, certain family members to try to turn a blind eye or make excuses for the criminals, like this guy's mother, for example. Of course, she's gonna try to believe the best in her son, and my boy wouldn't do that, or if something else caused it, he's not just a sick pervert. But the ex-wife, it's his ex-wife,
Mm-hmm.
the mother of his kids. I think that is the most unforgivable thing. I would never let him have contact with my kids ever.
Yeah. I'm curious if they take a stance on this, that this was just an internet thing.
Yeah, maybe I'm sure that would make them feel better about it. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't actually um, physically harm anybody,
Mm-hmm.
but still, underlying, you have to wonder, why would he want to do this to begin with?
Right.
That's the problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
That your brother offered, so you definitely do have the support that you need to be successful. All right, thank you for answering my question, sir. I'm going to turn over to my colleague, Ms. Palmieri.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Curcio, you answered so many questions with your opening statement and to the chair. I just want to follow up. We have a copy of your evaluation from the sex offender treatment program that you did at the facility.
Yes, ma'am.
We have a summary of it. And in there, you mentioned that you will engage in flexible thinking. Can you give me an example of what flexible thinking is and how
Well,
you'll use it?
right, and the one thing that I've been working on that I feel like I've really improved myself is taking away negative thinking. So having a better self image and having a more positive outlook about me. If that makes sense. I hope that.
Sure doesn't.
No, I don't see why that's important.
No, it's a bunch
Honestly.
of word salad.
Mhm.
Well, he feels good about himself. He's going to be flexibly thinking. And whenever he has a bad thought, he's going to flip that upside down into something positive.
Great.
That's great. Good for you, man.
It does.
And you didn't take the Voices program, which is a program that really talks about how the offenses affect the victims. But I'm sure you talked about that in the sex offender treatment program. What is your understanding of these types of crimes on the young victims?
I
What's the effect?
know that you know my words and my actions have not only just affected the young victim, but their entire family. I pray for their family every night.
Thoughts and prayers, sweetie. That's what he has for you. Thoughts and prayers to you and your family.
All he said is, I know it affects them.
Yeah. Yeah, and
And he
he's
prays
also,
for them.
yeah, and he's not talking about the young person, the actual victim. It's understood, yes, it's going to hurt her family because the family then has to deal with the after effects. But what about what you did to the 12-year-old girl?
Um, I know that I'm sure it's been very hard for all of them. I understand that, and I'm terribly sorry. I'm very sorry, and like I said, I don't expect them ever to forgive me, but at some point, I have to give myself some grace. That's what I've been taught in here.
You haven't explained what happened.
Nor did he explain how it affects them.
Right.
He's oh wow. He just said, I need to give myself some grace. So I need to just forgive myself for it.
Right.
That wasn't the question.
No, it wasn't. What are you forgiving yourself for? What did you do?
Inappropriate.
Yeah, he was irresponsible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you, upon release, expect to be difficult or challenging for you? I mean, you're going to be on the sex offender registry for 10 years. That alone can pose some challenges for you. Is there anything else that you foresee that could be challenging or difficult?
No, other than, the fact that I now have this reputation, or I guess label, as some would call it. I know that that's going to be difficult, and I know there's going to be some people that don't understand what that is.
Oh, we understand.
Yeah, we understand. Absolutely. I think his word, what he means to say is there are going to be people who don't sympathize.
Yes. Yes. I think what he's saying is that there's going to be some people who don't believe in, well, he served his time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't follow that type of thinking. That maybe there's going to be people who don't care about his depression or his divorce or the fact that he was an alcoholic. They're going to say, so what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are the people who don't understand. But his
People
family
who don't feel safe with him around children.
Right. Yeah, people who may, when it comes time, when he's spending time with their kids and they have friends or whatever, and their parents say, you're not going over there, which is what they should say.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not going to be understanding.
And have their own opinion of what that is. I also know that being on the registry is going to be difficult for me just to accept myself. But just like the attitude that I had coming in here today, I'm willing to accept, whatever the future holds for me. I feel like I'm much more equipped than I was before I came in, before I was incarcerated. I've learned so much through individual counseling, and as far as going forward, it's about taking it one day at a time. That's the biggest thing for me, being honest with myself and taking every day one day at a time. When it comes to how I approach my life from here on out.
Do you think alcohol or being around alcohol will be a trigger for you? How do you think you're going to manage that?
I do think so. I know that, obviously alcohol has been a problem for me in my past. I've been sober for 2 years now, over 2 years, and I'm happy with myself. I have zero intentions of ever going back to drinking, but I do understand and respect that it is a disease and that, things could get difficult. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to rely on all of the things that I've learned, and especially through meditation and prayer, that I'll be able
Shut up.
to pull my.
What's wrong, Amanda
I
James?
hate I hate the prayer bullshit. It's so annoying. But if this parole hearing were because he got a DUI,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe this would be relevant. The alcohol was the problem. He's getting treatment for alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
for his alcohol addiction. Therefore, the chances of him reoffending are lower. He's not
Right.
going to commit that crime again. It has nothing to do with his crime.
No.
That's what's really frustrating, and they're just acting like it did. He was drunk every minute of the day that he was messaging with this girl. And most people can get drunk every all day long. They can get shit faced all day long, and it's not going to change who they're attracted to.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. That's what makes all of these excuses just excuses. But he's got to give
Yeah,
himself grace at some point.
I guess so. And who knows to what extent his drinking really was, because when people go to prison, or to jail, or they're in the court system, they're always going to point, and I'm sure their lawyers tell them this, they're always going to point to whatever addiction problem they had, because that can be treated. It's a
Mm-hmm.
disease,
Yeah.
so there's rehabilitation that can happen for something like that. And it's that's the easy thing to point to. Oh, it was the booze, I was drunk, I need AA. I don't need prison, I need AA,
Mm-hmm.
or Narcotics Anonymous, or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
So we don't know if he was really drunk all the time or hungover, either drunk or hungover, like he said. That could
Yeah,
all just be.
sure. Definitely. I mean, the ex-wife that's so supportive of him may have seen that side. Maybe that's
Hmm.
why they're no longer married. Maybe he chose alcohol over his family, over his responsibilities.
Hmm.
I think that I can imagine if that is to be true, I think that his life was probably pretty messy. I don't think that he was handling any responsibilities. He may not have been doing well with work. He may not have been doing well just at home, in maintaining his home or whatever was going on. And it didn't sound like he had any contact with family. Now, of course, that to me is all separate from what he did. Those are
Hmm.
just the circumstances of his life, So I imagine that not only just for this does he have a lot of apologizing to do, but I think just for his life in general, just for a lot of the things that he probably did before.
Yeah, but like you said, I think they're separate.
Oh yeah, definitely.
They're separate issues. Being a shitty dad, and being kind of a bum, being a drunk, being a loser. Those are that's one thing. Put it over there.
Hmm.
Um, what's on the table, or what should be on the table here, is the fact that he was preying on a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah, yeah.
Myself through it and be able to make the right decisions.
All right, Mr. Curcio, thank you very much. I don't have any additional questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Ms. Page? No question. You have fair? Okay, so at this time, we're going to turn the hearing over to the Office of Victim Services. Mr. Jesus, thank you for joining us. Thank you very much.
Do you see the change in facial expression?
Oh, we just had the victim impact statement.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's when, do you want to talk about that a little
Yeah,
bit?
absolutely.
Yeah, so from my memory, the mother of the victim, um, mostly was just pleading with the parole board because there was the chance that the child's name would be released. The criminal here, I don't know what we want to call, I forgot his name already.
Mr.
He
Curcio.
never, right, he never knew the victim's name.
Hmm.
She never told him her real name. And there, it seems like their biggest concern was that her name would be released. But also, I think we need to remember that he's only been in prison for a year and he's already up for parole.
Yes.
And he had what, an 8-year sentence, all
Yeah.
but four suspended or something.
Yeah. I think that he was in jail for 3 years. And then he went, because, it takes time to get through everything. And so probably by the time, because he had an 8-year sentence with 4 suspended. So I think that he was in jail and then he was sentenced, because in her statement that she gave, she was talking about for 3 years.
Okay.
We didn't know what was going to happen. And she's obviously very, very upset. And like you said, she's pleading. That's what she was doing. She's pleading. And she said, I can't believe that we're here. After I just went through this, a year ago, talking at his sentencing. And now we're here that he's going to have the opportunity to leave. And she was talking about her daughter and how much she has suffered through this entire ordeal. And she kept reiterating over and over again how her daughter's name and her family's name should never be known. Just not even just for the child's dignity, of course, which is priority, but also for safety.
Yeah, definitely.
Because this person had something, like I said before, something really dark inside of him that allowed him to move forward. He was thinking about what he did in a very deliberate way, in a very what I think sophisticated way as well, to come up with this persona of a young boy who's going to be talking to this young girl and having a relationship. So, I mean, who knows if he could be really angry, and he could very easily find out who they are if that name was not redacted and sealed from the restraining order that's going to be issued on their behalf against him. But that was a major, major fear of hers. It's really sad to hear.
Very sad.
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. And he's very sad as well to have sat through that.
I know, look at his face.
I know.
All right, so Mr. Curcio, give us some time to discuss your case. You can listen to our deliberation and we'll come back to you with our decision.
Thank you.
Of course, want to thank the victim and the victim's mother for giving us statements here today. We appreciate the input. Tragic, really, that they have to continue to go through what they're going through and be fearful. That was a very compelling statement. And I think Mr. Curcio does now that he has a clear head and has taken some programming during his incarceration, does understand the impact that he's had on so many people. I do.
Where did he demonstrate that he understood that?
He was just shaking his head. Yes.
Wow.
But that's a great question, because he hasn't really answered the questions that were presented to him. And they were relatively easy questions. Like we said before, we want to dive right in there. You know, we want to ask why. Don't tell me about all of these things that were going around in your life. I want to know why you went after a kid. There's plenty of women, plenty of adults that you can talk to. Why did you go after a kid? Why did you create a boy her age that she would be interested in talking to a lot more than some 45-year-old man?
Right. All he's talked about is the impact it's had on him
Mm-hmm.
and how unpleasant prison was and the impact it's had on his own family. All he said about the victim, and he didn't say anything about the victim actually, he just said, I understand it has affected the victim's family and I
Mm-hmm.
pray for them.
Right. Every night. Yeah.
He has some remorse for his criminal behaviors. He's taken every program that he should have taken from his OAP. And he certainly recognizes now that alcohol is a problem for him. He does have an addiction. He's addressing that, and he has a plan to address that when he's out in the community. He's hoping to move out of state. So moving to another state would hopefully give everyone some sort of fresh start. And he has employment waiting there. He has support from his family, and he will continue to do programming to address problem sexual behavior and his alcohol addiction. He has 5 years probation to follow the sentence. I do believe that he could benefit from some stricter parole supervision in the community and continue the path that he started as far as rehabilitation programming. And of course, the supervision. We want the supervision in cases like this to be able to monitor what people are doing in the community. For those reasons, my vote would be to grant parole. Understanding and appreciating the victim's point of view here today. Ms. Palmieri?
I would also be willing to vote in favor of Mr. Curcio's request for parole today, for all the reasons that you stated. And, you know, he also will be required to be on the sex offender registry for 10 years, which is also another level of a supervision safety net for the community. So, and I do agree that Mr. Curcio has taken a number of programs to address the underlying factors, including his own mental health, alcohol use, and the sex offender treatment program, which will continue in the community with also conditions for monitoring.
Right.
So I would be in favor of granting his parole today.
Thank you, Ms. Page.
So I appreciate the victim's input as well, and it was so emotional just reading the statement. I realize that he has done what he has done while we've been there, but I am going to vote on the minority and vote to deny Mr. Curcio. Just think that the police from the mother, you know, internet doesn't have a state, you know, unfortunately, and this is pretty serious for.
Okay, so victim impact.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you. In the matter of James Curcio, I'll make a motion to grant parole effective March 27th, 2024, with the following conditions. You're to have no contact with minors without your parole officer's permission. You'll have enhanced internet and device monitoring, a mental health evaluation and treatment if it's deemed necessary. You are not to consume alcoholic beverages. You'll participate in problem sexual behavior treatment in the community. You'll parole to the interstate unit for possible placement out of state, and a halfway house condition if it's needed. Is there anything else?
I have nothing else.
Is there a second to the motion?
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so this is a majority decision. Ms. Page dissenting. Do you have questions, sir?
I don't. I just want to say thank you, and I want you to know that I have never, and I do not ever want to know the identity of
Right,
the family at all.
okay. Thank you.
The
Keep working on
victim, you
yourself,
mean?
sir.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the family. It's the,
Mhm.
oh God. I was really shocked by that.
Yeah, I was too. But I think that there is a mentality that this was just an internet crime.
Hmm.
At least to, maybe a majority, because a majority did vote to give him parole. It's been such a short period of time. And this was a really serious thing. You have this mother who is basically crying through her statement. She's trying to get through it, and that's difficult to do. And you have to sit there and just imagine sitting there and this man is talking about how great he's doing, how much his life is getting better. And it's, going through the process of having him be sent to prison only for him to be let out again. And although it's not a normal life, he's not walking out a free man by any means. But it doesn't
No.
it feels like he's going to have more comforts though that he
Oh,
shouldn't
definitely.
have. Yeah.
I mean, where's the punishment
Mhm.
in this? I understand that he was in jail for 3 years and then, but he's only served 1 year of his sentence.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think sex offenders should be eligible for early release ever at all
Mhm.
under any circumstances. What he did was bad enough to get him put on the sex offender registry and put in all these sex offender treatment classes. And I don't know, I was just really surprised that that two of them voted to release him.
Mhm.
And that's where I kind of wonder, and I think you're right. I think the fact that it was just an internet crime, in quotes, probably has something to do with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, it's just kind of a thing. It feels like sometimes that type of a thing is sort of brushed over. It's not as bad.
But it's just, I feel like that's where it starts because it's much easier and
Mhm.
less risky to do it online. But things like that will escalate because, again, the underlying problem is the fact that there's an attraction to kids,
Mhm.
or else he wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the one person on TCAP, Richard Burnham, who portrayed himself as a younger person at first, and then he had a friend who was an older guy. So he was going under two names. So he was like a college student, I think. And then he was this I guess this college student is friends with an old disgusting man. And that's how he got into it. And I feel like talking about escalation, what Mr. Curcio did in that he never knew the person's name. He um, obviously hadn't planned on meeting her. I mean, we don't know the conversation. And again, just like you had said, we don't know exactly all of the charges that were there at the beginning as well. But that certainly doing a Richard Burnham type of, you know, bait and switch is certainly something he could have been up to.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's so strange about this too is that, like I said before, he created this persona of a young person. So he probably was talking about school. He probably somehow was relaying that he was a young person, perhaps thinking about himself when he was younger and using that. Because if his family's in New York, he probably came from New York, and he, in his online Snapchat guy, was from New York.
Yeah, no, I know it. The fact that you're right, made this whole character up, just so he could communicate with this girl, makes it all even more serious. I feel like
Yeah,
makes it more
definitely.
sinister.
Right. It's more sinister. It's the manipulation is off
Yeah,
the charts.
it's more deliberate. So when he talks about how he was isolated, I feel like that's akin to Lauren's, you know, nobody cared about me.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted somebody to feel like somebody cared about me. I feel like that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what he's trying to put out there.
Yeah.
But how could she? It was a made up character that he
Sure.
created solely to get sexual gratification from this kid.
Yeah. Yeah. And her mother was talking about just how many disgusting messages there were.
Hmm.
And that must have just absolutely devastated her, not only as her child in the hospital, because again, she was in crisis at that time, but then to look at her being victimized on her computer through messages. It's a lot. It's a lot.
And now he's free. He's out,
Yeah.
um, playing basketball, going whatever the hell he's doing,
Yeah.
going to barber school.
In the theater group, he's thinking positively with his flexible thinking.
Hmm.
Yeah. So he's doing all of that.
And when they asked him to name the tools or some of the tools that he's learned through his treatment,
Mm-hmm.
and it was specifically about his alcohol treatment,
Mm-hmm.
which again I don't think is very important to the crime.
Mm-hmm.
He just said, "I'm not the only one who's going through this, and I need to seek professional help."
Yeah, you didn't know that other people drink too much
Right.
and have a problem. Like, this is a new concept. You were like, "What's AA? Oh my god!"
I thought I was the only
I thought it
one.
was the only one. There's a name for it. It's called alcoholism. Never heard of that before in my life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this was an interesting one too, because it highlights that you don't have to go to the house to get arrested. You don't have to
Yeah.
actually go and meet somebody at a meeting place to get arrested.
Mhm.
Yeah, this was all on the internet. So, we have one more. You ready for this one?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do the unveil. Here he is.
Look at this beauty.
Look at this beauty. So, this beauty's name is Joshua Richardson. And Joshua did something horrific. So, this was not an internet crime. So, to give you an idea of what happened, he was living with his sister and his brother in law and their 2 kids. The crimes are against the kids. The victim is a little boy, and he was 4 years old at the time when it started. His sister is also considered a victim because she was a witness. She was there. And that started when she was 1. So we're gonna hear about the time frame that this was all going on during the hearing. But it did go on for a period of 4 years. That's what he was convicted for. So from the time this little boy is 4 until he's 8, and from the time this little girl is 1 year old. They were victimized by their uncle. And it's so sad to hear a story like this and to see a monster like this who is not only going to hurt a baby, literally, but also their family. And think about how you're supposed to feel about your family. You're supposed to feel safe. You're supposed to feel safe with adults. And it's so sad to think about these types of situations because this isn't something new. Joshua is not the only one. There are many, many sick people like him. And they're members of the family. They're teachers at school. They're coaches. They're law enforcement. They're people at the church. It's really sad to think that kids are just not safe. And the times when they're not, when something horrific happens to them, it's so devastating. So his sentence was 21 years, suspended after 8, with 15 years of probation and lifetime on the sex offender registry. This hearing occurred 3 years after the sentence. So he was convicted of illegal sexual contact on a victim less than the age of 13, risk of injury to a child, and third-degree sexual assault with use or threat of force. He also, just to add on what he has an additional charge as well that he received while he was there. And we'll hear about that too. He received an additional year to a sentence for having an unauthorized item in the institution.
Do you know what third degree, like what that imply? I'm not familiar with the law.
I'm not either. I'm not either, to be honest, and I didn't look.
I mean, that's horrible, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sexual assault with threat of injury or force or whatever it said. What
use
a
or
horrible
threat?
thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And like you were just saying, this occurred in this child's home.
Yeah.
The place where they should feel safest.
Mm-hmm.
And it went on for years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sad. But on a lighter note, just to kind of alleviate this just a little bit, this guy gets roasted. He really does. Deservedly so. He absolutely does. But so we just listened to something that was unbelievable. You know, this person gets out on parole after being in prison for a year. And so we're going to hear what happens to him. Let's go.
Good morning. Thank you. To the distinguished members of the board, I thank you for allowing me to speak before you today. For 2,277 days, I have reflected on my mistakes and discerned from them how to be a better human being overall. I have truly come to understand what it means to be rehabilitated completely and fully. My only desire is to become a peaceful, law-abiding citizen again and to re-enter the world and prove to those who have stood by me in my darkest days that their faith is not misplaced.
Okay, so remember these words where he's talking about how he's completely rehabilitated.
Mm-hmm.
And he is so thankful for all the people that have stood by him during his darkest times. Those dark times are behind him, everyone. And he's completely rehabilitated. How often do we hear that?
I bet he spent all 3 years so far that since it being sentenced, um, admitting that he was responsible and, um, you know, starting his rehabilitation. I bet that's been going on for a while.
Yeah.
I especially want to thank and acknowledge my best friend and love of my life. Her never-ending encouragement and love have strengthened me in my weakest moments. I only wish to repay her with my undying love and support all the days of my life.
Vomit.
I know. Again, what kind of a woman could ever even be in the presence of a monster like that without the only reason to be in this man's presence is to set him on fire.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we'll get a little bit of an idea of what their relationship is like a little bit later, and also perhaps how he's explaining himself to them
Right.
a little bit later too.
As it says in the Bible in James chapter 1, verse.
Okay, wait a minute, Amanda James. I should I should have paused there. I didn't timestamp it. I should have. I'm sorry. Are you okay?
Yeah, I expect it now. I would be
Sure.
shocked if somebody didn't start quoting the Bible
Sure.
in
Yeah.
their parole hearings for raping a baby.
Yeah. Go ahead and quote the convenient things in the Bible and just leave behind everything else. Everything else that would actually condemn you.
Yeah, let's see what passage he chose
Okay.
from the Bible.
It's going to be an inspiring one, I can already tell.
25. But he who looks into the perfect law of freedom and continues not being a hearer who forgets, but a doer of the work, this means he will be blessed in all he does.
What was that?
I have no idea what that meant. I don't even know what that meant. I don't think he doesn't know what that meant.
He doesn't know what it means either. Let's see what he says about it, though. I think he's going to comment.
Only intend, if upon release, to be a doer of that word, to follow all things put before me and follow them to completion for the rest of my life.
What does that mean, to follow to completion? I feel like he saw the word freedom and was like, yes, I'm picking that one.
Yeah. That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Freedom? Let's do it.
I want to plant that seed with the parole board. Freedom. Remember freedom? Freedom.
And not just a hearer. I thank you for the consideration of my case.
Thank you for your statement, sir. We do have questions for you.
That was an interesting statement.
Yeah, so I am completely rehabilitated. I want to thank my girlfriend for supporting me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to follow my freedom to completion. I don't know.
Something about following to completion. We're not really sure.
Oh, I don't like that. I don't like the way it sounds.
I don't like it either. But yeah, he doesn't talk about what's going on. He's like saying like a farewell, thank you speech.
Yeah, I think he misunderstood the assignment.
He
here.
didn't understand. I think you're right.
When we're done with our questions, we'll turn the hearing over to the Office of Victim Services for input, and then we'll deliberate and give you our decision here today.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll begin with my colleague, Ms. Palmieri.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Richardson, I just want to ask right off the bat, do you still deny these charges?
No, I don't. I take responsibility for my actions.
So you admit that you committed these sexual assaults against the victim?
Yes, ma'am, and I take full responsibility for that.
Okay, because in pretty much everything I've read up to today, you weren't accepting responsibility. You still denied that it occurred.
I didn't deny everything. I only denied a portion of it. But as of today, after reflecting, talking with family, praying about it, I take full 100% responsibility for all.
Oh,
As of today, right
that's
now, right this
convenient.
minute, I'm sitting in front of you. Can you let me go now?
Yeah, as of today, I
Yes.
as of today when I get the chance to be free. And you know what? If he took full responsibility for what he did, then he would not even want to be up for parole.
Hmm.
I think if he took full responsibility, then he would want to serve every day of his sentence.
He wouldn't feel like he deserved it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So he said earlier that he's been incarcerated for 2,000 days. And today, right this moment, is when
Hmm.
the other thousands of days. He's like, no, I didn't do this.
I didn't do it. Yeah, that's what the parole board member said, that he's been denying it up until like this very minute.
This very
Which might
minute.
explain why he's had the support of his girlfriend. I mean, it might
Well,
explain it. She might just be a dirtbag who
yeah.
would support a monster.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's more likely that he, you know, tried to convince her that he didn't do it.
And we'll hear more about that too.
Hmm.
All my actions.
Okay. So you've changed that because of prayer and talking with your family?
Yes, my family is the biggest support system I have, and they are behind me 100% regardless of what I've done. And of course, because of that, I take responsibility for it. So yes, I take 100% responsibility for my actions. Only I committed them, and therefore I am responsible.
Okay. And the assault took place over 4 years,
It took place in less than 4 years.
in less than 4 years, but over the
Not a
course of
4 year
4
period.
years?
Not a 4 year period, and a 1 year period. They say it was a 4 year period. I am admitting to a 1 year period.
Okay. So it sounds like perhaps he's not fully taking responsibility.
Yeah, not fully. Only a quarter of the responsibility.
Yes, only part of it. Exactly.
Okay.
That's the part where I was denying it. So it wasn't that big time span.
All right. And you have no prior criminal history, so you've never been arrested or convicted before.
No, ma'am.
And you know you have 15 years of probation to follow your period of incarceration.
Yes, ma'am.
And you did say that through the support of your family, we did get a number of letters in support of your early release.
Oh my God. Can you imagine?
I really can't.
I can't
really
imagine.
can't imagine that. Who would be supportive of him? Their own family.
Yeah.
Even if they could, sort of push it aside, and it's some like faceless, nameless child. It's just some child. This is their child,
Yeah.
their grandson, and whatever. I really could not imagine supporting him.
No, absolutely not.
And you're attesting to your character and that you'll change and they'll support you in the community, including your mother and your girlfriend and the mother-in-law of
Yes,
your
ma'am.
girlfriend. Okay. You've taken the short-term sex offender treatment program during
Yes, ma'am.
your period of incarceration. Can you tell me why you think they wanted you to take that program?
Because I'm a sex offender, ma'am. Because I committed the crime and I'm responsible. Therefore, I needed to figure out what are my triggers, how to avoid them, and how to be able to channel destructive behavior into positivity. That way, going forward, I can't reoffend again.
When did you finish the program?
Almost a year ago.
Almost a year ago. Okay. Prior to taking that program, were you still in denial, or was it?
No, I was accepting it because the day one of the program, you have to actually come out and say whether you were guilty or not. And I stood up in front of everybody and said, yes, I am guilty of this crime and I deserve to be here.
Okay. All right. So tell me what you were able to identify through that treatment program as triggers for you in the community.
Okay, so prior to taking this class, I've also taken some other voluntary programs while I was at Garner and other programs, learning specifically about mental health, specifically that I have complex PTSD and I have
Another person who's suffering over here.
Yeah, poor guy.
PTSD is the reason why he did what he did.
Yeah, that's why he traumatized another person.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I guess so.
This is
triggers.
that victim narrative that we've heard about.
Oh my gosh. So much of that.
Mhm.
So much of that. That's what makes me crazy about this type of an explanation. Oh, I understand now. You see, when I was a kid, this happened to me. If that hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't have done what I did.
Right, it's somebody else's fault that I
Yeah.
did what I did.
Right. It's
ultimately.
somebody else's fault. Like, oh, well, I have complex PTSD, so therefore that led me to assault a baby.
For years.
And now I understand that, so I'm okay with myself.
Mhm.
Yeah, for years. Didn't have to do with the fact that he has an attraction to children, and clearly there was one readily available for him.
That's the part that's never mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
which is the most obvious answer. And anybody who actually did take responsibility, that would be their answer.
Yeah.
I was attracted to kids. I don't know why I'm attracted to kids. I guess it doesn't really matter why.
No, exactly. That's the thing. And that's the stuff that I suppose can be talked about in therapy. Those things can be talked about. I don't understand why I am attracted to kids. That doesn't take away the obviously the crime and the responsibility for committing the crime. But why am I attracted to kids?
Mhm.
Because I don't think that anybody can explain that. I don't think he can. I don't think anybody who's committed that type of a crime can truly explain the reason why they are without pulling something out like complex PTSD, trauma from when they were kids and they were abused too. There's no accountability for what's being done. It's placed in other things, alcoholism, depression, mental health. Come on.
Due to a traumatic childhood involving my father and his suicide and his abuse of me as a child. So I learned to be able to actually approach those things that I denied that ever happened to me. And then I learned that those led to negative thoughts, and those negative thoughts were what were triggering me. So now, instead of particularly just if I have a negative thought, I start channeling it out. I write it out completely, the complete thought. I break it down, word by word, sentence by sentence, and I figure, okay, what's the root cause of this that's causing the thought? And then
That's such horseshit.
I know it makes no sense. The negative thoughts were my trigger.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Right.
The attraction to prepubescent kids is the problem. It's so frustrating. And if it were my job to determine whether these guys were um suitable for release, that's what I would look for.
Mm-hmm.
The admission
Yeah.
that this is the underlying problem. I did this because I wanted to. It's something in me wants to do that to kids.
Yeah.
I'm working to fight it, but I don't know why it's there. Maybe I'll never be able to change it, but I've been learning how to stop it from happening.
Yeah, and he's talking about like writing down these negative thoughts and breaking it down. What is the root cause? I mean, whatever's going to work, right? But that's not. That's a bunch of garbage. You have a negative thought that pops into your head and you're like, oh, stop everything. Let me get my notebook. I need to
Where's
write
my
this
pencil?
down. Yeah, I
Yeah.
need to write it and then I'm going to break it down so that I'm not triggered. That is impossible to do. There's just no way. What, are you going to stop every time you have that?
And again, there's no talking about the compulsion that is there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the root problem.
Yeah.
I look for positive ways to be able to I guess mold it into a way that so I can find positivity and gain strength from the negative thought instead of negativity. So I also learned about what are the potential pitfalls that you might experience in the world, situations, environments, people, and I learned exactly how to live a productive lifestyle that avoids all those things.
So when you have these triggers, that will be your process.
That would be my process, as well as seeking, like, if it is a very complex trigger thought, that is where I seek professional help, because I do plan to go to individual therapy as well as group therapy and seek mental health services, very frequently if I return to the world. So, when I reach the point where I can't seem to figure out the solution to it, I will seek professional help so I can avoid those things, because I don't not wish to offend again or get into a situation that I cannot get out of again.
A situation that I cannot get out of.
Yeah, again, it's not his fault.
No.
He was out of control. He couldn't control it. But yeah, what the fuck does that mean?
It means I'm annoyed.
Me too.
Yeah.
Is that also what you would consider to be your relapse prevention plan?
Yes, ma'am. As well as, between, wanting to be a productive member of society, I want to get training to actually have a career, just to be able to support myself financially, as well as support my loved ones, because my girlfriend will become my wife. We are planning to get married and we're planning to be a family, and I want to be able to support her completely in all her dreams. So having that, as well as I have a very large family that is very supportive. I have a very large church family that is very supportive, because I'm very into my religion. And so all those groups have all decided to rally around me to make sure that I can't fail again.
Okay.
Everyone needs to protect me. Everyone wants to protect me. They're going to do everything they can to make sure that they do what they need to do to make sure that I don't offend again.
Yeah, he's the priority, protecting him,
Mm-hmm.
not the children.
Yeah. Yeah.
And your relationship with the victims, have you had any contact with any of that side of the family?
No, ma'am.
You have 3 disciplinary reports.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk about those a little bit? I mean, one of them resulted in a new conviction and a 1-year consecutive sentence. It's pretty significant.
I can.
Okay. So, like she just said, we're gonna hear about what gave him the extra 1 whole year added to his sentence, plus a couple of others, because he has a total of 3. So, what I want you to keep in mind is the question of what's his explanation for these? Do we see a theme surrounding these explanations? Okay. I know you probably already know. I know.
Yeah.
But we'll see what he says.
So the first one, for the intoxication, I still was fairly new to jail, and I was very frightened about still being in jail, as well as dealing with PTSD, anxiety, and mental health stuff that I hadn't got a handle on. And I had just gotten a new bunkmate who came in at Corrigan, and he had Suboxone. And he said, "Oh, take this, it'll knock the edge off." And I said no for a couple weeks, and then eventually I succumbed to the pressure of him, offering it to me on an almost daily basis.
Oh,
and
Poor guy, he was pressured.
What a horrible bunkmate.
I know. I hate peer pressure.
I know. Same.
And in my experience, people do just try to give away drugs for free,
Yeah.
even when you don't want them, especially in a setting like prison where
Right.
they're kind of hard to come by. They just
Mm-hmm.
give them away. They pressure you to take them.
Definitely every single day.
Hmm.
Every single
You want
day.
that Suboxone, bud?
Yeah.
How about today? Look how good it looks. I know you want it. And this poor guy, this poor guy's like, no, I'm not. I'm not interested in that at all. Keep it to yourself.
Exactly. Drugs are bad. I don't do that. And then eventually he's like, okay, you broke me down.
Well, he was frightened in prison.
He was frightened. He had a lot of mental health stuff going on. He doesn't anymore, though, because he's completely healed.
Completely rehabilitated.
Yes.
As of today.
As of today, right now, in front of the parole board, he's a new man. Okay, so that's the first one.
I did the urinalysis the following day. I immediately, before they even gave it to me, I admitted to my wrongdoing.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that part. Uh,
I
okay.
admitted it when I was about to be busted for it.
Yes, exactly. I was about to have it. I said, I'm guilty. And I put my hands up.
I gotta tell you guys something. I really have to tell you this. I did drugs. I'm real sorry.
And
But
you,
I'm rehabilitated now.
yeah, no, I don't do that anymore. It was just that one time. Never touch the stuff again.
Talk to my bunkie. He made me do it.
He sure did. He's the real problem here. That's who you should be talking to. Do not grant him parole if he ever comes in front of you. He's horrible. I'm curious though, what made them test him that next day?
I would guess that he was acting high. They could tell.
They could tell. Yeah.
That's what I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Either somebody told on him.
The
or-
bunkmate.
I know, it might have been the. Well, because maybe he stole it from the bunkie.
Could be.
Who
Yeah.
knows? But my guess is that he was like nodding out.
True. Yeah, he probably was. Yeah.
The full responsibility for it.
There
As
he
for
goes, taking
the-
full
the-
responsibility for everything again.
The newest conviction, as you can tell, I'm not a very small person.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so I had a sewing needle that I was using to alter my clothes to be able to fit more properly because the facility didn't have sizes that fit me. Now, when they found the item, they said the facility said it was contraband and they dumbed it down to tattooing equipment when it really was a sewing needle, and I admitted it to it. But then the state said, oh, it was a weapon. And so I went through the process of dealing with the new charge. And the attorney came to me after a couple of months and said, they're offering you a 1 year added onto your sentence. It's probably the best offer you're going to get. And he suggested that I take it. And not really knowing very much about the law, I was afraid. I was afraid of, how long it would take me to get in front of you today. And I took the offer. But I don't agree with.
Question.
Yeah.
So I don't do it so much anymore, but I used to sew sometimes, a little hobby.
Okay.
How do you make clothing bigger with a sewing needle?
Well, he would have to disassemble the piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
And probably take another one and add
So
to
he
it.
was sewing two shirts together?
He could have. I mean, I don't know. I was thinking about that too. Because if you're going to make something bigger, you're going to let it out, right? There's going to be seams that you can let out. Hopefully, depending on how much
Right, but
room you
they're-
need.
Such a minimal amount.
Yeah.
I feel like you might have half an inch.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel like he would have to be like a full-on seamstress in there to do what he
Right.
needed to do. Yeah. I don't know
And
what he would be able to.
He doesn't have access to scissors. to cut up a bed sheet to make a uniform or something.
Right, right. And I
So
mean, wouldn't it? Yeah, I mean, this story is falling apart, like as you talk about it, because I I guess I just took it a little bit too literally. Because first of all, maybe the clothes weren't really fitting him.
hmm
And that is the job of the prison. They have to accommodate him. He's there. You know, he has to have clothing. And if it's, I'm assuming it's too tight, probably.
hmm
So they would have to do something about that. But you're absolutely right. Like, how is he actually making his clothes bigger? Because to let out the seams and stuff like that, it's not going to make it that much bigger. And how is he cutting up fabric in
hmm
order to put something together? I mean, that it seems much more than just having a single sewing needle.
And they at first said that it was for tattoos. And if you look at his arms, he has tattoos on his arms.
Oh
I
yeah, he
think
does.
it's more likely that he was trying to do jailhouse tattoos than he was playing seamstress.
Oh
Um,
yeah, okay.
doing all. I mean, I don't know if it was intended as a weapon. Maybe he doesn't really look like much of a fighter
Mhm.
to me.
And what are you
Um,
gonna? Yeah, I mean, I suppose, and I was also thinking, like, what are you gonna do with a needle, really?
well, right, poke somebody. I
Yeah.
mean, ow, yeah.
Don't do that.
All right, that was annoying. Please, ow. I don't even have a band-aid. That's not
Right.
nice.
I know.
It's like smacking somebody with a flip-flop.
Yes. Yes, exactly. A flip flop.
But yeah, that seems like an awful lot of work for an extra inch in your jailhouse or
True.
your jail uniform.
You know what? I agree with you. I think that he probably was tattooing.
hmm
Um, because like we were just kind of working out as we were talking about it, he would need more than just a needle. Where's the thread? There would
Right.
be other paraphernalia that would have to be with it in order to be able to put something together.
And he's about to say, this is uh, little spoiler here, but he's about to say, because they ask him, "Where'd you get the needle?" He said,
Yes.
"A man made it for him."
Yes.
How are you going to make a sewing needle where you can actually thread the eye? Like, how would you even create a needle with an eye that you can
True.
sew with? It would, but you could create a needle that's just used for poking for tattoos
Yes.
or for a weapon,
Wow.
I guess. But
Sure.
I think tattoo is more likely.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Because there could have been other tattooing paraphernalia there. Like maybe there was ink or, whatever
I
that they found.
Yeah,
Oh my
exactly.
gosh. His
I mean,
whole
why not
story.
just admit it? Just be like, I like tattoos. I
Well,
was bored
because
and I
yeah, but what he's saying is that he's just trying to survive in there.
right.
He
It's
doesn't
almost
even
like
have
he's
any
a
clothes.
victim.
Yeah.
hmm
He doesn't
Yeah,
have any clothes. So he has to make him he's Cinderella basically.
basically.
He's gotta at night when everyone else is sleeping, he's sewing his
The prison
clothes
rats
together.
come to help him.
They sure do. Yeah.
It being a weapon. It was a sewing needle just to alter my clothes so that I could be comfortable, in my own skin and walking around and not look like a fool.
Where did you get the sewing needle?
A sewing needle there was a gentleman on my block who made them. For $2, he would make you one. And I took the offer.
So, like you said, this gentleman made needles for tattooing.
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't have a sewing needle making business.
No. I know. How many inmates are like, oh, I really want to make myself
I know.
some fresh new clothes,
I
but I
know.
don't have a needle.
I know.
I wish we had a needle maker around here
Yeah.
for sewing.
And then he's like, go see the guy down the hall. Bring $2 with you. Slip it under the door and come back in an hour. He'll have your needle for you.
I want to see this
all right.
needle.
Look at his face too. He's like, he's kind of like, you know, just trying to live my life here. I'm a big dude. The clothes aren't fitting me, and I'm doing the best that I can.
He didn't want to look like a fool.
No, definitely not.
So some of the other programs that they wanted you to take was the Voices program.
They initially gave me Voices program, then they took away Voices program, and then upon the new conviction, they put Voices back on my program. But in this facility, it's a year and a half wait to get into
Okay.
it.
Okay. And I realize that you haven't taken it and you're on the waiting list for it. And you know that the Voices program is to bring awareness about the victimization that you've had on the victim and how their long-term effects are. So in your situation, tell me what you've thought in terms of what is the long-term effects on the victim. How do you think this affects the life of the victim?
This profoundly affects the life of the victim, as myself as being a victim of this crime by my own father as a child.
Oh, he just said the wrong thing.
He sure did. He pissed me right off. Oh my gosh. I know it affected the victim because I'm a victim too.
Mm-hmm.
You guys.
Well, it stays with you every day of your life forever. You can find coping ways to deal with it and get through life with it, but it never goes away. I have profoundly affected my victims in a negative way, and I forever will feel guilty of that and will forever take responsibility for that. I cannot take it back. I did it. I can't take it back. But all I can do going forward is be a positivity in the world and not a negativity in the world.
So let's talk a little bit about your release plan. You've proposed to live with your girlfriend?
Yes, ma'am. We were living together prior to this.
Right. And what else is your plan upon release?
I intend to take advantage. The state has been offering vocational training programs that I've been trying to get into while incarcerated, but because of the length of what I've left on my sentence, I'm not eligible to take any of those. So upon release, the first thing I wish to do is to go up to Hartford and enroll in the program to try to get some vocational training so I can have a career, as well as seeking, individual therapy multiple times a week, as well as going to scheduled programs that are going to be, required of me. And in the meantime, I have put out, little feelers for trying to find employment, and I have found some responses, especially where I used to work before. They are more than willing to accept me back to work. So I should have a job fairly quickly upon release, and pretty much my life at this point is about going to work and going home and maintaining a home life. That's my whole world. I only ever really want to do that. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I don't go places where I don't go, not supposed to go. As I said to the parole officer, kind of like me and my girlfriend's life is, we love to go antiquing. We love to go to thrift shops, and we love like that kind of thing. But then it's pretty much that and go home, and
Lovely.
that makes me the happiest person in the world and the safest person in the world.
Okay. Well, it's important to have hobbies and structure in the community. I appreciate that. You have a lifetime requirement to be on the sex offender registry. Can you think of how that will impact you at all?
It will impact me the rest of my life. It will impact me negatively, but that also holds me accountable. It also always will hold me accountable for what I've done. It'll always be a reminder of what not to do, what not to repeat, what behaviors not to do, not to repeat, and how to go forward in positivity. So I think it is a negative, but it also can be used as a positive.
Do you think that he really believes that?
No,
Who
I don't. I think
would?
he's lying.
Who would think that for real?
Right. Yeah, he's just saying what he thinks they want to hear.
Yeah. And it's so
I,
funny because it can't be what they want to hear. None of this is what they want to hear.
yeah. I also like how he threw in the part about how him and his girlfriend love to go to antique stores and go thrifting.
Yeah,
Like how could I be dangerous? I love antiques.
exactly. I'm just going to stay home. I will go out for just a few minutes and I'm going to scurry on home because that's where I'm the safest.
Yeah, he loves sewing, antiquing,
Thrift
being
stores.
positive.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be a negativity in the world. He wants to be a positivity in the world.
It's a little late for that.
Oh, it sure is. Yeah, especially for a couple of little worlds that he
Hmm.
destroyed. Yeah.
What do you think will be difficult for you upon release?
I think probably employment would be difficult, but as well as acclimating into the community if they wish to know about what I've done. And
Why will employment be difficult? You just talked about how there was a place where you worked before that was more than willing to take you back.
Yeah, it's a good point. That's true.
Hmm.
I'm not afraid to tell people that I'm what I'm convicted of. I'm not afraid to tell them that yes, I'm guilty. But that's because I made this mistake and I messed up. It's not a definition of who I am as a person and
Oh, it sure is, though.
Hmm.
Yeah, it sure is.
who I am going forward. I can be a great person going forward despite all this.
What do you do to occupy your time now that you're done with treatment?
Right now, I spend well, I talked a lot to family. I talk to my girlfriend. We get 6 free calls a day. All 6 free calls are used up to talk to them. Between them, I do drawing. I've taught myself how to do art. I've gone from basic stick figures to I would say somewhat decent work at this point. I'm no Van Gogh, but um, between that, I go to church. I do daily devotional, daily Bible studies. I don't really socialize a lot with the people in here. I tend to be quiet and read books and stuff like that. There's a few people I talk to, but I tend to just keep to myself and try to be as low profile as possible. So, I'm a very quiet person, introverted to begin with. So that sort of fits what I do now. So right now, that's kind of what I do. Pretty much the art and the reading.
Okay. So upon release, you want to work, you have some hobbies with your girlfriend. What do you think about treatment? What are your treatment needs upon release?
Well, I do need therapy. It's agreed that I have to explore more about the CPTSD. I have to get more into what happened to me as a child and what that has changed me to lead to me where I am today and lead to what the causes of me to have committed my crime. So I do need that, as well as I do well in groups. I do well individually. I would like to do both. I would love to do groups openly to be able to discuss. Maybe something that I have done could help somebody else. I get a kind of profound sense of, I guess, achievement if something in my past can help somebody else get through something they're struggling with.
Help them with what?
I don't even know. That's
What are you going to be a motivational speaker? You're going to start hosting talks?
yeah, I don't know. Comparing the stories of their crimes, how would it help anybody?
Right. And he just wants to be in therapy all day, every day. Groups, individual. Somehow he's supposed to be working, but he wants to go to therapy multiple times a week.
Oh, that's another good point. I didn't even think of that.
He's really set on being a positive person. He's completely healed, but he needs all kinds of therapy.
I think that when he was, This was all very last minute preparation. He had a few sort of buzzwords in his head that he thought that they would want to hear, but he really did not think this out well.
No, I agree. I agree. I think that because remember at the beginning where he's just kept saying, I take full responsibility. I'm the one who did it. I take responsibility. I'm in that class because I'm a sex offender. I take full responsibility for what I did. Of course,
Yeah, but then
he changed a little bit, but I don't admit to the whole thing, just part of it.
and we find out that he was taking no responsibility up until that very moment. Like, play the long game at least.
I know.
While you're there for 3 years, start then. Oh, yep, I guess I did. I did something real bad. And then, when your time comes to be up for parole, you have something to stand on.
Mm-hmm.
But he was denying it the whole time.
Yeah.
So
Well,
proof's is good.
Okay, and you'll be required, you have 15 years of probation,
Yes,
so you will be required to continue with the sex offender treatment in the community, and that'll be primarily group
Yes, ma'am.
related. So that'll be one thing. Do you think you will have a condition of no minors?
No minimum.
Yeah, you can't be around any minors. Okay. All right, anything else, Mr. Richardson?
No ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you. I have no further
Thank you,
questions.
Ms. Page.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Richardson, in your discussion with my colleague, I was just jotting down a few questions because some of the stuff, it just doesn't line up. There seems to be some discrepancies.
Yes, ma'am.
And so just for clarification purposes, were you residing with this victim at one point?
Yes, I was.
For how long?
Before they were born, technically, I was living with my sister and her ex-husband at the time. I was kind of like the primary source that was paying the rent in the vicinity wherever we were living because my sister didn't work.
Let's stop you, Mr. Richardson. How long did you live there?
I don't know. It was probably 10, 12 years.
So when the victim says that this has occurred for over 4 years, you're saying it was 1 year.
It was 1 year. It was the last year that I was living there.
Why did you choose this victim?
Excuse me?
Why did you choose this victim?
This victim was the closest thing to me. It wasn't like I intentionally meant that it was the closest thing to me. At the time I committed the crime, and as I've stated in my program before, I felt like a lack of control because I had no control over anything in the house. So I felt like if I did this, I could have some control over something. It was very wrong, and
That's why.
Control
Just a
over
lack of
something.
control.
Something. His nephew.
And he said that this victim was the closest thing to me. There were 2 children
Mm-hmm.
in that house.
Yeah.
And so does that mean he abused both children? I think he only is accused, at least, of abusing the little boy.
Yes.
The girl's a victim, like you said, because she witnessed it,
Yes.
which is horrific.
Mm-hmm.
But so no, it wasn't that he specifically chose that child out of the 2. He chose that one
Mm-hmm.
for a reason. He's not going to share the reason, obviously.
No.
And again, a lack of control. What does that have to do with anything you wanted to control? The answer should be the truth is that he is a sick pervert and was sexually attracted to a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. And how dehumanizing as well. Oh, he was just there.
Yeah, it was the closest thing to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I admit guilt to that it was very wrong thinking and stuff, but I didn't have a handle on exactly where my thought patterns were at the time.
So between then and now is when I've been able to figure out exactly what was the trigger, what caused me to my mind to go there, what my thoughts were.
But you just said that you were the one that was bringing in the money. So you
I
had
wasn't the
control.
only one bringing. I wasn't the only one bringing in money. The father was also working at the same time, but between me and him, we were the ones that were primarily paying the bills, the rent, and so forth.
So okay. So let's go one step further. So if this victim were, okay, your sister, do you have the same mother and father?
Yes.
And so does your sister still maintain a relationship with your mother?
It's kind of rocky at times, but yes.
And how about the children?
She doesn't really have a relationship with the children.
I'm just curious, this offense had to have divided your family.
Yes, it has. And initially, it divided my family, but my sister has come to support me after the fact. But me and her have never had the greatest relationship to begin with, so we keep a little bit of a distance between ourselves. We communicate to stay friendly, but we don't have the closest relationship.
Why would his sister, the mother, have an okay relationship with him?
I really don't know. When he said she doesn't have a relationship with the children, do you think he meant his mother or his sister doesn't have a relationship?
I think his mother.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if that's true when he
Sure.
said she's come around to support me.
Yeah. Exactly. I wonder if that's true. Because obviously we can't believe what he says.
Right. Well, you would think that the mother is the one who um, got the ball rolling with the abuse to begin with, reporting the abuse. Or maybe the kid
Could
went to
be.
somebody at school or something. Actually, I don't know.
It could be. Yeah.
So when you're having family gatherings, what do you think the situation would be like?
Well, the situation now is family gatherings is probably just between me and my mom. I doubt that my sister would actually participate in them because she, for lack of a better word, she's not very reliable. She kind of is not present most of the time. So no, but it has to do with her own mental health issues. She has her
Can
own
you
mental
blame
health
her?
issues.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's because of her mental health. It's not because her brother molested her kid for
Right.
years.
Yeah. And also,
She
why
can-
why would get-togethers be just him and his mom when he has this big family that
Oh yeah,
supports
that's true.
him?
And his church family.
Yes,
Exactly.
right. Everybody loves him. He's a good guy.
That she has always refused to be able to deal with. So because of that, it puts a strain on our relationship, particularly between my mom and her. And but the relationship between me and my mom is great. It's always been great. But the
Oh,
relationship.
wait, okay, stop.
Sorry.
So does your mother know that you admit now
Yes.
when did you tell her?
2 years ago.
So you were just interviewed by the officer in February and you said, and I'm going to quote, because the officer wrote it, you said to him that, he said, Richardson was asked to comment about the day of his arrest. He states that the police showed up at his residence and served him with a warrant. When asked about his involvement in this offense, he says he thinks that he was the only person to blame. Mr. Richardson says he did not commit this offense.
Yes, at some point though, I have to play.
You just said that you admitted it 2 years ago. This was last
No, I
month.
talked to. I'm sorry. I'm confused. I'm just confused. That's all. It's not that I talked about that I got arrested.
You won't be confused. You know that.
I apologize. I'm just confused. That's all. I admitted it 2 years ago that I was guilty of something, but I didn't admit guilty of this. I admitted that I was guilty of putting myself in a situation like this.
he's, he's not doing well.
Guilty of putting himself in a situation like this, but
Yeah.
not guilty of committing the crime.
No. No, see,
I don't get that.
when they went to the house and served him with a warrant, it just said, "You put yourself in a situation. Come with us."
Right. He said guilty, but that's all
Yeah,
I'm guilty
but
of.
that's it. Yeah, exactly. You're right. I am guilty of that. I would've
He's
come
just
with you.
confused. He's just confused. He's not lying. He's just confused.
Right. Yeah, it's not going well.
I'm admitting now that I'm guilty of the crime. I'm convicted of the crime, I'm guilty of the crime, and I'm taking responsibility for the crime for the rest of my life. And I'm accepting those responsibilities.
Just last month, you were not. So
Yes.
I'm
Between
concerned.
then and now, I've had the opportunity to be able to reach out to every one of my family members, every one of my supporters, including in the work.
Garbage. You did not.
Yeah, today. I'm admitting it today. God, get over
I
it.
know. I told my mom 2 years ago, but not that exactly.
I told her I was guilty of something.
Yes. And ever since a month ago, when I said that I wasn't guilty, right after that, I called everybody and told them that I was guilty of everything.
Well, almost not exactly everything,
Okay,
but
fine.
something.
Something, exactly.
And I take full responsibility for it.
Yes. We should have kept account of how many times he says, "I take full responsibility of that."
I know. His stories are very conflicting and contradictory.
Yeah.
It's so funny that he thought that like they weren't going to talk to anybody else but him.
I
And
know.
like, oh wow. This guy says he takes full responsibility. Wow, okay.
I know.
Paroled.
Yes, exactly.
To be honest with you and tell you that I don't believe that. You were just saying to my colleague, you just said, I asked you, when did you tell your mother? You said 2 years ago. And 2
2
years
years
ago was
about
not
my
that
own
long.
abuse, not my own abuse. I'm referring to my own abuse.
Well, we weren't talking about.
Oh, see, yep. Oh, no. This is a misunderstanding. You didn't understand me correctly. Now that you're calling me out on that, I would like to change my answer. No, I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about me being a victim.
He just said, though, that 2 years ago, he said 2 years ago, I admitted that I was guilty of something.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's saying, no. 2 years ago, I admitted that I was abused by my father.
Yeah.
Make up your mind, Joshua. That's crazy.
Oh, I know, it is crazy.
That's where I'm confused. I don't know which one you're talking about.
We're here to talk about you're not the victim in this offense. The victim of this offense is the child.
That's where I'm confused.
That's
Because
what we are talking about. You're not a victim, sir. You're not a victim.
No, I'm not a victim. I'm not claiming victim. I'm not claiming.
You are, though.
He literally just did.
Yeah, he just did.
Why would they be interested in when he admitted to his mother that he was a victim himself as a child?
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know either. This lady's pissed, though.
She is pissed.
Victim. I apologize. There's a
I don't
stuttering
understand why
between
you
the.
would refer to yourself as a victim. You're not in prison for sexually assaulting your son.
No, I'm not. I'm not. I admit that. There's a stuttering between the video here, and that's where I got confused.
No, they were never talking about you.
No.
They were never, ever talking about you and whatever happened to you before. Never, not once.
You're not in prison for sexually assaulting yourself.
That's yes. Yes, that's exactly right.
I know. He just pulled that out of his ass.
Sure
Just
did.
pulled it out of thin air.
Yep.
So, Mr. Richardson, when I asked you if you denied the offense, you said no. And I asked you Did you admit the offense when you went into treatment? And you said yes. And that's why I asked you, when did you finish treatment? Because the report says that you say you denied it. So I just wanted your clarification on my own questioning, because I was deliberate.
I know
in
you
my
are,
question.
I know. And I'm just not understanding why, I mean, you know, we do our homework and we are very thorough.
I'm aware of that, yes.
So I'm not
He's like, I'm aware of that now.
Now, yeah.
sure why you would sit here today and say, yes, I admitted that I did it, and I've been telling everyone that I did it, and your family's all rallying behind you, and now you're sitting here today and telling us that, you know, I didn't, you know, I based on everything that was read up until this very moment, right? It has said that you denied committing this crime.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Oh. Okay, I'm all set, Madam Chair, thank you.
Yeah, this really is a dilemma, Mr. Richardson. I have a similar concern, you know, are you coming in here and telling us what you think we want to hear so that you can get on parole? Or are you really being honest with everyone? Have you told your fiance yet that you committed these crimes against the child?
Yes,
And what did that conversation look like?
it was very brutal. It was very brutal. We did not talk for a while. And
So when did you have this conversation?
Only recently, when I started having this conversation about coming to here and admitting everything.
When did you have this conversation, sir?
Just recently, like
can you define recently? Because your timeframes are a little bit.
Couple weeks maybe? I'm not sure.
Okay, you had the conversation a couple weeks ago, and how did she react to the news?
She was devastated.
But I mean, you had been lying to everyone for years, right? She didn't care that you had lied to her about this?
Yes, I should have cared, and I feel bad about it now.
And not only that, but you further traumatized your victim by saying that he was coerced and had mental health issues and basically calling this child a liar for years.
Yes, and I'm responsible for that.
That's another piece of it as well, of what he did. He was manipulating everybody, or attempting to, by saying, you're going to believe this kid? What is he, how, you know, he's 4 years old. What is he going to remember? How can you tell me that he knows that it started at, you know, this time and then ended this time or whatever, you know, when I was arrested? Like, you know, kids make up stuff all the time. He's obviously really disturbed. My sister has a lot of mental health issues, so her kids do too.
He was coerced.
Yeah, he was coerced.
Yeah, I think that's why he was bringing up how unreliable his sister is, and how she doesn't have a good relationship with their mother, and all that. Yeah, to bolster his point that she coerced the child into making this.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah. So I guess I'm a little confused about how and when exactly you came to the conclusion that you would be truthful to everybody.
I don't know how I came to the conclusion other than prayer, talking to people, admitting it with myself. I mean, the first thing you have to do is admit it with yourself. First thing I had to do was admit myself that I'm responsible.
But the treatment program didn't do that for you.
No, but the treatment program helped me figure out where my thought patterns go. What caused me to get to that point.
Right.
That's what the treatment program. It's not saying that it's not what drove me to say I admit it. I mean, in the group, you have to be honest, because if you're not honest, the person who runs the group will call you out.
But you weren't being honest.
And we hear Lauren say that too, about his group. You have to be honest. You have to tell them everything. But they lie about everything.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Lauren, for years, didn't take responsibility in his group. And maybe they do call you out, but they can't force you to tell the truth.
No. And obviously, it's the same thing for him.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, but yeah, exactly. It sounds like he's been denying it to everybody
Mhm.
for a very long time,
Yeah.
up until this very moment, which I
Right,
find very
exactly.
funny.
It is funny to think like he's been incarcerated for all of that time, and like today he just gets it.
Is my point.
Right.
I still didn't. I went in the group and I admitted it. I just wasn't ready to admit it to my family yet. That's the part that
He says he admitted it in treatment.
But he just said he told his family. He said it.
not during treatment. I completed treatment over a year ago. I hadn't
Right.
admitted to my family then.
Right. So you had all of these conversations in the past couple weeks?
No, primarily it started very slowly a couple months ago, but it's only within the last couple weeks that I really buckled down and said, "Here's the 100% God honest truth. I admit to everything."
So why wouldn't you have then been honest with the parole officer a month ago?
So every time I get in front of somebody from the Department of Corrections, every time I get in front of somebody, I start having anxiety issues. So when it comes with me the questions, I told the gentleman that, look, I'm confused by the questions. Can you explain the questions, and so on and so forth. And he tried to explain them, and all I wanted to admit was the part where I don't believe that it was a 4-year window.
No, but that
That's
wasn't
the
the
part.
question.
Doesn't that sound like the yellow room
Yes,
for
I
the
had anxiety.
Yeah.
That's so stupid. I had anxiety, so I lie.
Yeah. Every time I get in front of one of you people, I get so nervous that I lie. And I'm honest about it.
All right. I just couldn't understand the questions. I was so confused.
Yeah.
And you did not say, you said nothing in the interview about it, you disagreeing with the 4-year window and it only happened in a year. You said you didn't do it at all.
I'm only hearing about the 4-year window now.
Oh, that's not.
Okay, anyway, who cares? Who cares about the 4-year window? She just said he didn't do it at all.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But it's funny to hear their reaction to this as well. When he comes out with this, they have absolutely no words. And the woman's just like, okay.
I know.
They know that they're pretty much done here.
It's not.
Yeah, all right. So at this point, we're going to ask that you not interrupt. We're going to turn the hearing over to the Office of Victim Services. Mr. Jesus, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so they just went through the victim statements for this particular person. And there were 2 people who wrote letters. And one of them was a grandmother. And the other one, I believe, is the father of the 2 little kids. And the grandmother, I believe, is that father's mother. So those were the victim statements. And what I thought was interesting was they referred to him as that man and pedophile a couple of times in there. And we're talking about how the kids are very damaged. They are going to therapy a lot, and they will continue to do that. And the last thing that they want is for this man, this pedophile, to be free.
Yeah, I remember them saying something about how he should have to serve every day of his sentence, just like the children have to serve every day of the sentence that he gave them.
Exactly. You know, I remember there was a case a long time ago where there was a drunk driver who killed somebody. And part of their sentence was that every single day they had to write a check for $1 to that family and send it. And it wasn't just about that, but the judge said that it was because they would have to think about that every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how long that went for. I think it was for quite some time. But that's the point. That's the point, is that I think that a victim is going to have to live for the rest of their life with this. They have to carry the burden. Their family has to carry the burden with them as well. But they have to carry it. And this person wants to go to the thrift store in antiquing. The other guy wants to go into a theater group and give himself grace. So they're going to move on, basically, is what they're trying to say. I'm moving on from this and I'm leaving it behind. But the victims don't have that opportunity. They have to heal from it. They have to take that on. They didn't ask for that. They were given that by these people who chose them to do that too. And I hate that.
Right. That's why I think, like I said earlier, if he truly took responsibility and understood what he did, then he wouldn't even be asking to be released early.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So I think we're all in agreement that Mr. Richardson's interview with us is very concerning. In one breath, if he's now accepting responsibility, I think that's the first step in the road to rehabilitation and to addressing what his needs are. My concern.
But he's not doing that though. Not in any real
No.
sense. He isn't.
Not at all. And I guarantee you, he would tell his family if they watched this, he would tell them, "Oh, I was just saying what they." I guarantee he still to this day denies doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It didn't happen for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't happen.
Is some of the manipulation that was attempted, which goes back to offender change. And, we're not here to decide guilt or innocence. So if Mr. Richardson chose to come and continue to deny, that's not where our role is. Our role is really suitability, offender change. And in my view, Mr. Richardson hasn't presented as being suitable. Due to a lot of the attempted manipulation of how he constructed his answers to today's questions. He did complete the sex offender treatment program. That's a positive.
Yeah.
He does score low on the risk. He has these 3 disciplinary reports. One was serious enough to warrant an additional consecutive sentence. So that is a concern. I do think he has a reasonable release plan with a lot of support in the community, which I think will benefit him down the road. He has 15 years of probation and a lifetime requirement to be on the sex offender registry. But based on what we've seen here today and our discussion with Mr. Richardson, I do not find him suitable for early release.
Thank you, Ms.
And I just wanted to add, and we did hear from the victims today, which, is, I think, just a snapshot of what the children were put through.
Right.
When you read actually the victim statement in the pre-sentence report, it really, I think, presents the bigger picture. I appreciate the victim's grandparent and the mom coming forward today, but it was a 4-year period of victimization, of force and assault. And I think that Mr. Richardson needs to address that and work on his behavior before he's suitable to be back in the community.
Thank you. Ms. Page, I agree. So do I. Yeah.
All right. Well, he's not getting out.
Good. Well, I'm glad about that.
Yeah. Not this time anyway. He will have another opportunity, I think, in another year.
I don't like that.
No, I don't either. I don't
It's a
either.
waste of time, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't think they should be eligible for early release. They were given their sentence. They should have to serve it.
Yeah. And it was a very, very serious crime as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so to just be half the time, be like, okay, you want to get out now? And he can't even answer questions properly.
Well, he was confused. He was
You're right.
confused.
You're right. He's in front of them. They're part of the the system there, disciplinary system. So therefore, he just lies. He gets really anxious.
Yeah, I think he thought when he first sat down there, he thought that he had that in the bag. He
I
was going to
agree.
throw out those words and they were going to just believe him.
Yeah, yeah. Those buzzwords. Taking responsibility, and I regret my actions. But again, I mean, just like the other person couldn't really talk about the victim and what they've done to them. It's all about, how great they are now, how they're not the same person anymore.
And anytime his victims were brought up, he would immediately pivot and talk about how he was a victim.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
He spent a good deal of time talking about how the abuse that he suffered has impacted him.
Yeah. In fact, when they were talking about the victim, he thought that they were talking about him.
I know, that's unbelievable.
I know. Oh, I thought you were talking about me.
Which doesn't even, like I said, it doesn't make any sense because first he said, I admitted the truth to my mother 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I told her I was guilty of something. And
Mm.
then it turned into, well, no, I told her that I was abused 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I really liked the parole board members' reaction, though. You are not the victim here. You are not the victim here.
Right. You're not in a prison for assaulting yourself.
And he's got his hands up, like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I
Yeah.
know. I know.
I know.
I'm not a victim. I'm not claiming I'm a victim. She's like, you just did.
I know. Sorry. Let me say something else. I take full responsibility.
I'm confused. I'm responsible and confused. I don't know.
Yes, exactly. Definitely a different hearing than the first one.
Yeah, and maybe, I mean, they are different crimes,
Yes.
of course.
Yeah.
They're both very serious. But I think they look upon like the physical, especially, using force or threat of
Yeah.
injury or whatever it was.
Yeah.
That's violent and horrible.
I know. It's so sad to think about what he must have said as well.
I know.
The threats that would have been said. That's awful. Well, it's good that he's still going to be where he belongs. And I hope someday his family that's so supportive of him. And I don't understand how a church family can be supportive of somebody like that.
They are, though. Look at
know.
Dustin McFetridge.
Yeah, you're right. You're
He
right.
has church people that go with him and like vouch for him.
Yeah. I don't understand that.
I think one time they went to court, they wanted him to be able to attend a church with them, and the judge said no because
Yeah.
there's children at the church.
Yeah.
And they said, well, we'll be responsible for him. We'll watch him.
Why would you take that on?
I don't know. Why would you want to? Absolutely. I don't know. I'm not religious, but I would think it would be an insult to the being that you worship to have a person like that in their church. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's
like
it's a strange thought process, I think. And I can't speak for everybody, but just like, like how in these, in when people are in prison and they can find God and they all of a sudden are interested in Bible study and, when they have all the time in the world, of course. They had no interest before. But I think a lot of it has to do with forgiveness. Like, I'm going to forgive you because I'm not supposed to judge you. Only God can judge you. And it's so strange, though, especially when it comes to this, because I do think that there are plenty of circumstances where, people can have second chances. And, even if they've done time in prison for whatever, there's a lot of nonviolent crimes as well that can happen. And certainly, sure, but you can give people an opportunity to redeem themselves. But when it comes to something like this, I just don't see how that's possible. And I don't see how you would place children in harm's way because you want to give someone a second chance because you think that that is the godly thing or whatever you believe to do.
I think, yeah, I agree. I think a lot of it comes down to just evangelizing, just kind of collecting people like that is one of their core beliefs. I mean, for some, I don't know, in some sects of Christianity at least, that's the most important thing is to spread the word of God. So they're not very picky about who they spread it to, I guess. That's
I mean,
the way I'm interpreting it.
Yeah, and I think the idea is all are welcome. Everyone's
all
welcome.
shouldn't be welcome though.
Yeah, I mean, especially because what you're doing is you're sacrificing the most innocent. You're sacrificing the most vulnerable. And you're allowing them into their midst because you feel like I need to give everybody a second chance and we're going to help him be a good person. You can't help somebody who is like this be a good person. They're just not.
Right.
And I think that's something that needs to be accepted. You're not a good person. You may look like you could be a good person, because looking at these guys or people that were on To Catch a Predator, most of them just kind of look like guys. You wouldn't think really too much about them if you walked by them. You wouldn't be thinking, oh, I need to be careful of them. Most of them anyway. Some of them maybe a little bit questionable.
Yeah, guy number 2 there, Joshua.
No,
Richardson,
sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm even thinking of somebody like Ham Butker and Donald Morrison. Where you're just like, oh, that's yeah, I can see that. That wouldn't be a shocker to see them pop up on the news.
Yeah, they look like exactly what they are.
Yeah, but I think with other people, even Lauren included, like you're just, I don't know, you wouldn't immediately say, oh, I need to watch my kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I don't know. It's really difficult to imagine that their feelings, the offender's feelings are placed in front of, safety and protection of people who are more vulnerable. I don't understand it.
No, I don't either.
No. So did you like watching this?
I liked watching number 2. Number 1 frustrated me. I watched number 2 first.
Yeah.
So I thought number 1 was going to go the same way.
I see. Yeah.
And then I was disappointed and surprised
Yeah.
and like yelling at my phone.
I know.
But yeah, it was great to watch him be called out.
Yeah, definitely. And not to have his manipulation be rewarded like I think it has been.
Yeah, I think exactly. I think you're right. His family believed him. He was talking about his girlfriend, how he finally admitted it to her and she was devastated, which implies that she believed him before.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like he's really been pulling he was coerced to say this. I was the one that had to take the blame. I think that that's truly the hill that he was going to die on. And I think he's still going to die on it to this day. I think he's just going to
Yeah.
say whatever he needs to do to get through it. And that's what they have to hear all the time. It's just a bunch of people who just want to get through it and get out of there and say, okay, yep. You know, and just get out. But they're truly dangerous. And you know, I'm sorry that you have to be known forever now. That's your fault.
Yeah, that's your fault, and it's for safety. People deserve to know.
Absolutely. Yeah, because the things that they do are done in secret.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, so we will leave it there for right now, and we will come up with something else to talk about next time.
We sure will.
Yeah, we sure will. All right, guys. Well, until then, take care.